What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the second edition of the Opening Tee podcast. Hopefully you guys found the first one at least relatively useful, and we did chat about a couple of things that turned out to be pretty good there for this week, and the week that played out there in Napa Valley at the Safeway Open. And again, somebody top 20 in driving distance takes it away. Maybe the number one in driving distance takes it away. And is the crowning champion. And that's actually going to kick off our first category, the Foursome Facts of the Week. Just a really quick, great way to recap last week's action. And it started off Cam Champ, as I just mentioned, probably number one in driving distance going into the week. Playing with a heavy heart. If you guys weren't able to catch any of the podcast, catch any of the telecast or catch any of the highlights throughout the week, he had his grandfather go into hospice over the last couple of weeks, and obviously very close with him, very emotional win. And we all know hospice, we all know what that is, and pretty sad times. So hopefully he's able to go and celebrate the life and the win after this one. And really good to see him back. It was all parts of his game at first. Struggled with a bit with his irons over the weekend, so the strokes gain numbers don't look as good, but still, it was an all-around effort. Off the tee was great in the weekend. It really propelled him, and then his putting was fantastic. And that's what can happen with Cam Champ, especially in his two wins. He gets really hot with the driver, really hot with the putter, where, he just needs to hit a couple of approaches really well, and that's what he did. Now, his approaches and around the green did carry him the first couple of rounds, so don't want to make it a two-trick pony here. He played incredibly well, and the swing looked much better than it had been, so definitely maybe a force to be reckoned with as the year marches on. Hopefully he can keep the momentum. Second fact from last week, it is the guy that gave him a little bit of push there at the end. Adam Hadwin birdieing the last three holes to get the 16 under, making Champ, hit that 370-yard drive on 18, hit an 8-iron into a par 5, came up short, ended up getting up and down for birdie. Cam Champ did to win. Hadwin, though, birdieing his last three holes. Thing I noticed, though, third lowest OWGR in the 7K price range. And now you can't always go just by official World Golf Ranking, of course, in that price range, because, you also had, guys like CT Pan and Kyle Stanley there. But Adam Hadwin and Cam Champ were 3-4 on the board in the 7K range in the OWGR. So if you're looking at that, which is a good, I guess, way to look at regression, if you don't know how to make a regression model or not, fully into that or don't have the time for it, interesting way to look at it. It's not a perfect measure by any stretch of the imagination. And not am I trying to claim that, but just interesting. Hadwin, Champ, both right there. So Mark Leishman won tournament after withdrawing really out of nowhere. And I mean like nowhere. T3, and that's out of nowhere too, to be completely honest. And I don't know where it came from, but he shot 7 under on Sunday, backdoor to the top 5. Now we'll move on to the rookies. 3 rookies nabbed really important top 10s. Zach Blair actually 13 under. I believe he got into the top 5 with that score. Xingzun Zhang, Cam Percy, all rookie. I shouldn't say rookies. Korn Ferry grads that need top 10s, especially when the fields get even stronger and there's reshuffles and so on and so forth. So really good for them to get those starts. Colin Morikawa, just another top 10. The guy is ridiculous. Just the consistency is unbelievable. Every week he plays. Similar to Cantlay, and Cantlay didn't have a great week, but shot under par today, and I believe finished inside the top 30. Not a great week, but they are just so super consistent. You can rely on them to get through the cut most weeks. So really interesting there. So we will move on to our next segment in the podcast. We do about 4 or 5 segments, about 5 minutes each here. That's what my goal is, at least. This is number 2, of course. So this next one is going to be the Wayward Off the Tee segment, which I'm just going to focus on guys that really struggled off the tee last week. And, coming to a course like we're going to learn about in just a couple of minutes, TPC Summerlin, you actually don't need to be that accurate here. The fairways aren't that tight, so maybe some of these guys can make a comeback. Byung-Hyun Ahn, actually, lost 3.2 strokes off the tee last week. He's in the field this week, so something interesting there. Kevin Tway, the defending champion of the Safeway, one of the longest drivers, could not find even close to a fairway, lost over 2.6 strokes off the tee last week. And Adam Scott, who shot 7 under on day one, only got it to 9 under the other two. And it was actually off the tee that he really struggled. So just wanted to bring those up, not numbers we are typically used to seeing. And then, of course, we're going to go to our not your average missed cut. So I have one of the best stories I've seen in a long time about a cut sweat. And, of course, it was one of my core plays last week. If you are an Osmo Plus member, you know that Abraham Answer. I like to play when he's priced in mid-eights in relatively strong field. You know you can get pretty decent ownership. And so he shot decent on day one, was 2 under, so right on that cut line. All he had to do was shoot even par, really. Went out and was 4 over through 13 holes. Got a birdie back to get it to 3 over for the day, 1 over for his tournament. Then he came to 16 and sank a 20-footer to get back to even par. I'm like, man, he needs to go birdie. I guess it's possible. He was playing the front side, so 8 and 9 weren't that bad. So he's playing with John Daly, mind you. I don't know that matters. Maybe it mattered for this one stroke that he ended up missing the cut on. So he hits it in the bunker on 8, and I'm like, okay, he's done. I'm like, he's not going to hold his bunker shot out. Sure enough, holds the bunker shot out. Comes to the 9th hole, which ranked 3rd easiest on the week. I'm like, okay, he's pretty long off the tee. So sure enough, he hits it about 320. He had, I would say, about 260 in, just off the left, right rough, so pretty good angle. Puts it up there, front bunker again, about 33 feet from the hole. Just relatively similar to his last bunker shot he just holed out. I'm like, oh, man, he's going to roll this up to 4 feet, and that's going to be that. Well, nope. He rolled it out to 15 feet, back fringe, missed the putt. So did all that hard work, made a 20-footer on 16, which was 7, holed out the bunker shot only to go and miss the cut there. So that was my not your averaged missed cut segment. Now, we'll turn our attention to the next, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 8 golfers. I guess we are going to include Abraham Answer because this is a different category here. But there's 8 guys that missed the cut strictly due to their putting. If they had matched the field in their putting, they would have easily played the weekend. Leading that list, none other than Emiliano Grillo, who I said last week I was going to chase, and obviously upset that he couldn't get it done. He needed one more putt. What a surprise. The 8-footer that he needed, he missed. Kyle Stanley, another regular here. Seb Straka, also finding to be a regular. Then a couple of names, maybe not, that could be in for bounce-back weeks if they're playing again this week. Joel Damon, Doc Redman, Sung Kang, and Matthew Neesmith, who shot 6 under on day one and shot 5 over, just tanked coming into that cut, looking to make his first cut, I believe, as a PGA Tour member. So sad for him, but he will make a cut soon enough, maybe in this week. And then, of course, we just mentioned Abraham Answer actually putted terribly his 2 days, and of course, if he had matched the field, would have easily made the cut. Lost about 1.2 on the green. So. Then on the flip side of that, guys that putted really well but couldn't find anything else, we'll run through these pretty quickly. Kevin Streelman, Phil Mickelson, boy, he is just, I don't know. Phil Mickelson really might be preparing for the Korn Ferry Tour. Not the Korn Ferry Tour. That'll never happen. The Champions Tour, excuse me. He turns 50 later this year. I'm sure he'll still play some PGA Tour events, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him, take a little bit of I'm not going to easier competition, obviously, but probably easier on his aging body. He is having trouble finding fairways, lots of trouble. So Phil Mickelson there putted well. Michael Kim putted well, but could not find a fairway as well. Peter Malnati and Chase Seifert all putted well last week. So just something to keep note of if they can catch fire with the other part of their games. So it's about 10 minutes. That is my goal each and every week, which is great for me to give you a recap of last week, tell you some of the players that kind of came out of nowhere for their top 10s, other players that maybe can carry over that momentum into this week. So, of course, plenty of other content coming out this week as well. If you're not already an Osmo.com Plus member, go ahead and sign up using the code ROSLIN, all capitals. if you don't know how to spell my last name, Rouslin is how to do that. So, all right, let's move on to this week where we're actually going to TPC Summerlin for the Shriners Hospitals for Children Open. And TPC Summerlin, one of my favorite courses, actually. I've been playing it in, I've never played it personally, but I've played it on video games for, man, I can't even tell you how long, maybe ever. And I've been playing PGA Tour games on my video games since, 1995, something like that. So, anyways, it's in Las Vegas, if you're not familiar with it. So, certainly players that like the Las Vegas scene or liked to play in Vegas, Brooks Koepka being one of them. No surprise to see him start his season here. And if you don't know, I believe it's a little outside of Vegas. So, it still has a Las Vegas address, if I can give you those people that do know Vegas pretty well. I'm sure some of us have gone out there. So he's out by the TPC Summerlin. If you're going out by Red Rock, if you're going out for that canyon hike, which is beautiful, that's where it is. So I would say it's probably a little northwest of the city there, northwest of the Strip. I would say probably about 20 minutes, so not far. Easy for Brooks Koepka to go in and have a little nightlife fun. I'm sure his girlfriend will be doing that herself. Maybe not during tournament days, but anyways, let's talk about TPC Summerlin first before we move on to the rest of the field. I kindly hinted that Brooks Koepka is in it, but par 71 measuring 7,100 yards, so not very long by any stretch. Plus you have the elevation change going on as well. It's in Vegas, so we all know Vegas is in the desert. Yeah, I mean, I would say about 10%. If video games stay true to form, which honestly they've been true to form since I can remember. Back, this year, last year, each year, it's about 10% further on the driver hits than in other courses. And again, if you see that on the PGA Tour as well, it's somewhere in that range, in the 5 to 10% more range. So it does play pretty short. I would say it plays under 7,000 yards. It is a par 71. They play the third hole as a par 4 in this event, where if you go and play it yourself, it's played as a par 5. So it's a 2-split fairway with the greens kind of set on the left fairway, which you can't quite get to. Some players might be able to get there, like Tony Finau, Brooks Koepka. They'll likely be able to get to that left side, but most players go to the right and have to hit over basically the desert. It's not really out of bounds or anything or that penalized, but it sets up kind of like an island green. So anyways, they played as a par 4 for this tournament. Still, it doesn't really do much to the average winning score. It's still around 20 under, except for the year Cantlay won. Ton of wind that year. He ended up winning at, I believe, 9 under. But every other year, it's close to 20 under or better. And even Cantlay got to 20 under last year, so it's not like he can't do it. 11, it's going to run about an 11, so relatively slow, which is not a surprise, as it's Bermuda. That's normally what they run, maybe 11.5 on the Stimp meter, so pretty average for those non-golfers, which just means, unless it dries out, of course, that the greens will likely be a little easier to putt. So those bad putters should be able to catch up a little bit at least. Very interesting here. Holes 13 to 16 account for 40% of the DraftKings scoring. So we're talking about, 4 holes? All on the back 9, accounting for 40%. Wow, crazy. 52 eagles were made on those 4 holes. So certainly a lot of scoring to be had on the back end. So let's move on to the field. I mentioned that Brooks Koepka is leading the pack. He's the number 1 official world golfer right now still. And he's joined by 2 past champions of the event, Patrick Cantlay, who won it in 2017, and Bryson DeChambeau, who won it in 2018. So that brings us to the pricing section, which this week, I think it's a little difficult because Bryson came in last week relatively under-owned, came in under 10% owned at 9.9K. But because he's the defending champion of the event, I know that DraftKings likes to price these higher or better golfers that are defending champions up a little bit. So it's going to go Brooks number 1 at 11.7. it's his first time out, so I don't think they're going to put him all the way at 12, although he does have some pretty good course history. They could, but I don't think they go there quite yet. I think they get Cantlay at 11.3. Came in second and first the last 2 years. 13% owned roughly last week at 11.2K. So I think they probably just bump him up a little bit because of the course history. Ownership was there, so no surprise. Next, this is where I think they're going to put Bryson at 10.8K. I don't think they're going to put Webb there on his first start. And Tony Finau is coming off a great finish out in Europe at the Dunhill Links, which is of course a driver-heavy situation. And he's not going to be the only one coming over from this tournament that played well. He came in 10th. Lucas Bjerregaard, who had a pretty good week going, but looks like he only shot 1 under on Sunday. He's going to be coming over as well. Finished in 23rd. So Finau coming off a top 10. Webb Simpson. I've got Webb at 10.6. He's a former winner of the event as well. So I've got him next below Bryson. And I've got Finau $500 cheaper than Webb. I think it could actually come closer. And because this is supposed to be a pricing section, top 5, but it's really 10,000 and above, I think this week they may slide up one more golfer above that 10K range. And since we're talking about it, here's the thing. Matsuyama missed the cut last week, but he was so highly owned that it'll be interesting to see what DraftKings does. I actually think they're going to keep him at 9.9, so I guess I'll retract that previous statement. Maybe we aren't going to get the 6 golfers above 10K this week. I've given my 5. We'll recap quickly. Brooks at 11.7. Cantlay at 11.3. Oh, Adam Scott. Sorry, that was the other name. Adam Scott had a pretty decent week, but I think they keep him at 9.9. His ownership wasn't that high, so I think they keep him right there. He did go to UNLV, by the way, his 1 year of school, to point that out. So maybe they do slide him up into the 10K range and move Finau up to, say, 10.4. Anyways, just to recap now. Koepka, 11.7. Cantlay, 11.2. Bryson, 10.8. Webb 10.6 and Finau 10.1 is my guesses for this week. So not bad last week. 2 of 5 in my first bid, which is good. And I reviewed that, of course, on the Shot 3 from the Tee podcast. So I got a good piece of advice to shorten the podcast name. And hitting is a couple syllables there. Shot 3 is all going to resonate with all of us that use Shot Tracker on a weekly basis. So hopefully that you'll get episode 2 that tomorrow. So the last part of this podcast, the statistical focus, which each week it is going to change. Of course, we do like to look at ball strikers. That's pretty much a given fact, right? No doubt about it. It's more consistent to find and roster ball strikers, but we just saw a bunch of good ones miss the cut because they're putting last week. Abe Answer, Kyle Stanley, Grillo, Sepp Straka, Doc Redman. So they need to be able to putt. Anyways, this week, 50 to 125 yards. The reason why I'm focusing on there is because when I see that 200 plus really doesn't matter, and when I say it really doesn't matter, the last 3 winners, which went DeChambeau, Cantlay, and Pampling, all finished outside the top 35 in proximity to the hole from that distance. So obviously, you don't need to be good from that distance to win. But all 3 of them were very good from 50 to 125 yards. All 3 of them were superb with their irons. Pampling wasn't great off the tee. Cantlay was great off the tee, as was DeChambeau. And if you keep going, it's a little bit heavier focus on the strokes gained approach side than it is on strokes gained off the tee, but definitely favoring ball striking over short game this week. The greens are relatively easy to hit here at TPC Summerlin. There's not too much trouble at the course, which is why you see the scores get to 20 under. Definitely going to be an under par cut. It's in one of the top easiest 10 courses of the year. Again, there's just not much trouble to get in here. And that's why if you keep the ball semi in play and you're hitting it well, you can certainly score here. So 50 to 125 yards focus. Want guys that are hitting it good with their wedges. And strokes gained on the approach heavy for those who do make their own model. Definitely with off the tee second. And then I'll probably even put putting above around the green this week. So we will be back tomorrow evening for the Shot 3 from the Tee podcast, where I review a little bit of this and review a little bit of the field, a little bit of the field changes, and the pricing as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. And this week's little sign-off here is a track called Live to Win because, hey, after all, we're in Sin City this week, baby.